Hello everyone, I have come with the step number one. This is the book of the Think and Grow Rich, and now I have started to cover these all steps one after one. So let's start from here. It's step number one: harness the power of thought. All accomplishments begin with thought. In fact, you would not be reading this book had you not first thought about reading it. In terms of achieving success, thought is more than a notion or idea. Thought is the engine of action. As such, it is more of a mindset or state of mind than a feeling notion. It is an idea that combined with the purpose, persistence, and a burning desire. We can start from here. Hmm. Burning desire is transmuted into the equation of wealth or any other subject of desire. For thought to serve as a sufficient impetus to success, it must be one. So one is given. So it's given in point definite. Thought has no contingency plans. It sets its sights on something specific. Next, purposeful. The purpose is whatever goal you have in mind, whatever object or situation you desire, whichever direction you choose to move. Third, next point we can say persistence. Persistence, the whatever it takes attitude towards achieving the goal. Few have ever won anything believing they would loss. Now next is burning with desire. When desire is great enough, no obstacle is insurmountable. So next is believed. One must have faith and expectations that whatever one desires will be received. So this is the now it's given here that thought is energy that drives the action necessary to overcome obstacles between you and that which you desire. Now next, principles rooted in nature. The principles that enable you to think and grow rich are rooted in nature. You, the earth on which you live, and every other material things are the result of evolutionary change through which the microscopic bits of matter have been organized and arranged in an orderly fashion. Moreover, his earth Moreover, this earth, every one of the billions of individual cells of your body, and every atoms of matter begin as an intangible form of energy. Now next, it's desire. Desire is a thought impulse. Thought impulses are forms of energy. When you begin with the thought impulse, the desire to accumulate money, you are drafting into your service the same stuff that nature used in creating this earth and every materials form in the universe, including the body and the brain in which the thought impulses originate. As far as science has been able to determine, the entire universe consists of matter and energy. The combination of energy and matter has created everything perceptible, from the largest star that floats in the heavens down to the tiniest grain of sand. You are now engaged in the task of trying to profit by nature's method. You are sincerely and earnestly, we hope, trying to adapt yourself to nature's laws by endeavoring to convert desire into the physical and monetary equivalent. You can do it. It has been done before. You can build a fortune through the aid of laws that are immutable, but first you must become familiar with these laws and learn to use them through repetitions and by approaching the description of these principles from every conceivable angle. The author hopes to reveal to you the secret through which great fortunes have accumulated, strange and paradoxical as it may seem. The secret is not a secret. Nature herself advertises it on the earth on which we live, the stars, the planets, suspended in our view, in the elements above and around us, in every blade of grass and in every form of life within our vision. Nature advertises this secret in the terms of biology, in the conversion of tiny cell, so small that it may be lost on the point of a pin, into the human beings now reading this line. The conversion of desire into the physical equipment is certainly no more miraculous. Do not become discouraged if you do not fully comprehended all that has been stated. Unless you have long been a student of the mind, it is not to be expected that you will assimilate all that is in this chapter upon a first reading, but you will in time make good progress. The principles that follow will open the way for understanding of imagination. Assimilate that which you understand as you read this philosophy for the first time. Then, when you reread and study it, you will discover that something has happened to clarify it and give you a broader understanding of the whole. Above all, do not stop nor hesitate in your study of these principles until you have read the book at least three times. You 3 times, for then you will not want to stop. Next, you are the master of your fate, the captain of your soul. When the English poet W.C. Henley wrote the prophetic lines, I am the master of my fate, I am the captain of my soul, he should have informed us of the reason we are the master of our fate, the captains of our souls, that we have the power to control our thoughts and that our thoughts shape our reality. Here is how thought shapes reality. The either in which little earth floats, in which we move and have our being, is a form of energy moving at an inconceivably high rate of vibration. This ether is the filled with form of universal power which adapts itself to the nature of the thoughts we hold in our minds and influences us in natural ways to transmute our thoughts into their physical equivalent. This power makes no attempt to discriminate between destructive thoughts and constructive thoughts. It will translate into physical reality thoughts of poverty just as quickly as it will translate into physical reality thoughts of riches. Our brains become magnetized with the dominating thoughts which we hold in our minds, and by means with which no person is familiar. These magnets attract to us the forces, the people, the circumstances of life which harmonize with the nature of our dominating thoughts. Before we can accumulate riches in great abundance, we must magnetize our minds with interest, desire for riches. We must become money conscious until the desire for money becomes a sufficient force to transmute desire into wealth. Now, next, it's given you truly are the master of your fate, the captain of your soul. This is a natural and enduring truth is at the root of the principles described in this book, the principles that unlock the secret of gaining the mastery over your financial fate. Next, develop success consciousness. The Great Depression started in 1929 and continued on to an all-time record of destructions until sometimes after President Franklin D. Roosevelt entered office just as an electrician in a threat raises the light so gradually that darkness is transmuted into light before you realize it. So did the spell of fear in the minds of the people gradually fade away as faith filled the darkness. Through the power of thought, what seems impossible become possible. Some who will read this book will believe that no one can think and grow rich. They cannot think in terms of riches because their thoughts habits have been steeped in poverty, want, misery, failure, and defeat. To think and grow rich, the first step is to adopt the proper mindset. Become success conscious. Success comes to those who become success conscious. Failures come to those who indifferently allow themselves to become failure conscious. Stop thinking in terms of impossibles and cannot. People readily point out purposed solution that proposed solution that will not work and cannot be done. Plug these and other self-defeating words from your vocabulary. Now, gog opportunity by what is possible, not by your own impressions and beliefs. People tend to develop a habit of measuring everything and everyone by their own self-limit impressions and beliefs. Don't let preconceptions hold you or others back from achieving what is possible. The object of this book is to help all who seek it learn the art of changing their minds from failure consciousness to success consciousness. Stories that illustrate the power of thought. The stories that follow demonstrate how intangible thoughts combines with purpose, persistence, and a burning desire. Translate into the acquisition of tangible wealth and how the power to control one's thoughts shape one's reality. The man who thought his way into partnership with the Thomas Edison. Edwin C. Barnes harnessed the power of thought to become a business partner of the great Thomas Edison. Two of the chief characteristics of Barron's thoughts were that it was definite and purposeful. He wanted to work with Edison, not for him. Two difficulties stood in Barron's way. He did not know Mr. Edison and did not have the means to travel to Orange, New Jersey to meet him. These difficulties were sufficient to have discouraged the majority of people, but his was no ordinary thought. It was coupled with the persistence and burning desire. Barnes was so determined to find a way to achieve his goal that he finally decided to travel by the blind baggage by a freight train. He presented himself at Mr. Edison's laboratory and announced that he had come to go into business with the inventor. In speaking of the first meeting between Barons and Edison years later, Mr. Edison said, "He stood there before me, looking like an ordinary tramp, but there was something in the expression of his face which conveyed the impressions that he was determined to get what he had to come after. He had learned from years of experience with man that when a man really desires a thing so deeply that he is willing to stake his entire future on a single turn on of the wheel in order to get it. He is sure to win. I gave him the opportunity he asked for because I saw he had made up his mind to stand by until he succeed. Subsequent events proved that no mistakes was made. Next, just what young Barnes said to Mr. Addison on that occasion was far less important than that which he thought. Addison himself said so. I could not have the young man's appearance that got him his start in the Addison office, for that was definitely against him. It was what he thought that counted. It wasn't the Baron's appearance that got him his start in Addison's office. It was what he thought that counted. Barons did not get his partnership with Addition immediately. He did get a chance to work in the Addison office at a very nominal wage, doing work that was an unimportant to Addition, but most important to Barons because he gave him an opportunity to prove himself. Months went by. Apparently, nothing happened to bring the coveted goal, which Barnes had set up in his mind as his definite major purpose. But something important was happening in Barnes' mind. He was constantly intensifying his desire to become the business associate of Addition. Psychologists have correctly said when one is truly ready for a thing, it puts in its appearance. Barnes was ready for a business association with Addition. Moreover, he was determined to remain ready until he got that which he was seeking. He did not say to himself, "Ah, well, what's the use? I guess I'll change my mind and try for a salesman's job." But he did say, "I came here to go to business with Addition, and I'll accomplish this, and if it takes the remainder of my life." He meant it. What a different story people would have to tell if only they would adopt a definite purpose and stand by that purpose until it had time to become an all consuming ovation. When one is truly ready for a thing, it puts in its appearance. Maybe young Barnes did not know it at the time, but his bulldog determination, his persistence in pursuing a single desire, was destined to mow down all oppositions and bring him the opportunity he was seeking. When the opportunity came, it appeared in a different form and from a different directions that parents had expected. That is one of the tricks of opportunity. It has a sly habit of slipping in by the back door, and often it comes disguised in the form of misfortune or temporary defeat. Perhaps this is why so many fail to recognize opportunity. Mr. Edison had just perfected a new office device known at that times as the Edison dictating machine, later called the Audiophone. His salespeople were not enthusiastic uh, over the machine. They did not believe it could be sold without a great effort. Barron saw his opportunity. It had crawled in quietly hidden in a queer looking machine and that interested no one but Barron's and the inventor. Barron's knew definite purpose. Barron's knew definite purpose fueled by the persistence and burning desire, that he could sell the Edison's dictating machine. He suggested this to Edison and promptly got his chance. He did sell the machine. In fact, he sold so successfully that Edison gave him a contract to distribute and market it all over the nation. Uh, Out of the of that business association grew the slogan "Made by Editions and installed by Barons." Out of this business alliance, Barons made himself wealthy, but accomplished something infinitely greater. He proved that one really may think and grow rich. Barents literally thought himself into a partnership with the great Edison. He thought himself into fortune. He he had nothing to start with, no money or influence, and little education, but he did have initiative, faith, and he will to win. He knew what he wanted and was determined to stand by that desire until he realized it. With these intangible forces, he made himself number one man with the greatest inventor who ever lived. Barons literally thought himself into a partnership with the great addition. Now, let us look at a different situation and study a man who had plenty of tangible evidence of riches but lost it because he stopped 3 feet short of his goal. Quitting 3 feet from gold. One of the most common causes of failure is the habit of quitting when one is overtaken by temporary defeat. Every person is guilty of these mistakes at one time or another. This is a story of how thought without persistence can lead to failure. R.U. Derby, who later became one of the most successful insurance salesmen in the country, tells the story of his uncle who was caught by the gold fever. The gold rush days and went west to dig and grow rich. He had never heard that more gold has been mined from the brains of man than has ever been taken from the earth. He staked a claim and went to work with a pick and shovel. His thought was certainly definite, purposeful, and driven by burning desire, a lust of gold. Thought without persistence often leads to failure. After weeks of labor, he was rewarded by the discovery of the shining ore. He needed machinery to bring the ore to the surface. Quietly, he covered up the mine, retracted his footsteps to his home in Williamsburg, Maryland, and told his relatives and few neighbors of the strike. They got together money for the needed machinery and had it shipped. The uncle had Derby went. The uncle and Derby went back to work the mine. The first car of ore was mined and shipped to a smelter. The returns proved they had one of the richest the mines in the Colorado. A few more cars of that ore would clear the debts. Then would come to big killing in profits. Down went the drills, up went the hopes of Draby and his uncle. Then something happened. The vein of gold ore disappeared. They had come to the end of the rainbow, and the pot of gold was not here to be found. They drilled on, desperately trying to pick up the vein, all to no avail. Finally, they decided to quit. They sold the machinery to a junk man for a few $100 and took the train back home. Some junk men were dumb, but not this one. He called in a mining engineer to look at the mine and do a little calculating. The engineer advised that the project had failed because the owners were unfamiliar with fault lines. His calculations showed that the vein would be found just 3 feet from where the derbies had stopped drilling. That is exactly where it was found. The junk man took millions of dollars in ore from the mine because he knew enough to seek expert counsel before giving up. The junk man had no specialized knowledge about fault lines, but he had to the wisdom to hire someone who did. See step 15 for more about how to harness the power of the specialized knowledge when you are not in position of it yourself. Long afterward, Mr. Derby recouped his loss many times over when he made the discovery that desires can be transmuted into gold. The discovery came after he went into the business of selling life insurance. Remembering that he lost a huge fortune because he had stopped 3 feet from gold. Derby profited by the experience in his chosen work by the simple method of saying to himself, I stopped 3 feet from gold, but I will never stop because men say no. When I ask them to buy insurance, he owes his stick to the it evinces to the lessons he learned from the quitting sort of achieving his goal in the gold mining business. Before success comes to most people, they are sure to the meet with much temporary defeat and perhaps some failure. When faced with the defeat, the easiest and the most logical things to do is to quit. Persistence is the key to the succeeding in the face of adversity. More than 500 of the most successful people this country has ever known claim that their greatest success came just one step beyond the point at which defeat had overtaken them. Failure is the trickster with a keen sense of irony and cunning. It takes great delight in tripping one when success is almost within the reach. Persistence is the key of foiling failure, as our next story demonstrates. A 50 cents lesson in persistence. Shortly after Mr. Derby received his degree from the University of Hard Knocks and learned the painful lessons of persistence, he had the good fortune to be present on the occasion that proved to him that no does not necessarily mean no. One afternoon, he was helping his uncle grind wheat in an old-fashioned mill. The uncle operated a large farm on which a number of sharecrop farmers lived. Quietly, the door was opened, and a small child, the daughter of a tenant, walked in and took her the place near the door. The uncle looked up, saw the child, and the barked at her roughly. What do you want? Meekly the child replied, my mummy says send her 50 cents. I'll not do it, the uncle retorted. Now you run on home. Yes, sir, the child replied, but she did not move. The uncle went ahead with his work, so busily engaged that he did not pay enough attention to the child to observe that she did not leave. When he looked up and saw her still standing there, he yelled at her. He told you to go on home. Now go, or I'll take a switch to you. The little girl said, yes, sir, but she did not budge in an inch. The uncle dropped a sack of grains he was about to pour into the mill hopper, picked up a barrel staff, and started towards the child with an expression on his face that indicated trouble. Derby held his breath and Derby held his breath. He saw certain he was about to witness a murder. He knew his uncle had fierce temper when the uncle reached the spot where the child was standing. She quickly stepped forward one step, looked up into his eyes, and screamed at the top of her shrill voice, my mummy's gotta have that 50 cents. The uncle stopped, looked at her for a minute, then slowly laid the barrel staff on the floor, put his hand on his in his pocket, took out half a dollar and gave it to her. The child took the money and slowly backed towards the door, never taking her eyes off the man whom she had just conquered. After she had gone, the uncle sat down on a box and looked out the window into space for more than 10 minutes. He was pondering with awe over the whipping he had just taken. Mr. Derby too was doing some thinking. That was the first time in all his experience that he had seen the child of a sharecropper deliberately master an adult authority figure. How did she do it? What happened to his uncle that caused him to lose his fierceness and become as a docile as a lamb? What strange power did this child use that made her master over the superior? These, these and other similar questions flashed into Darby's mind, but he did not find the answer until years later when he told me the story. Strangely, the story of this unusual experience was told to me in the old mill, on the very spot where the uncle took his whipping. As we stood there in that musty old mill, Mr. Drubby repeated the story of the usual conquest and finished by asking, "What can you make of it? What strange power did that child use that so completely whipped my uncle?" After I had described to Mr. Derby the power unwittingly used by the little child, the power of thought, as described at the beginning of this chapter, he quickly retraced his 30 years of experience as a life insurance salesman and frankly acknowledged that his success in that field was due in no small degrees to the lessons he had learned from the child. Mr. Derby pointed out every time prospective tried to bow me out without buying, I saw that child standing there in the old mill, her big eyes glaring in defiance. And I said to myself, I have got to make this sale. The better portion of all sales I have made were made after the people had said no. He recalled too the mistake he and his uncle made stopping only 3 feet from gold, but he said that experience was a blessing in disguise. It taught me to keeping on no matter how hard the going may be, a lesson I need to learn before I could succeed in anything. Derby owes to these two experiences his ability to sell more than $1 million of life insurance every year. Henry Ford and his V8 engine. Millions of people have noted the achievements of Henry Ford and envied him because of his good fortune or luck or genius or whatever it is that they credited for Ford's fortune. Perhaps one person in every 100,000 knows the secret of Ford's success, and those who do know are too modest or too reluctant to speak of it because of its simplicity. A single incident will illustrate the secret perfectly. When Ford decided to produce his now famous V8 motor, he chose to build an engine with the entire 8 cylinders cast in one block and instructed his engineers to produce a design for the engine. The design was placed on paper, but the engineers believed that it was impossible to cast an 8 cylinder gas engine block in one piece. Ford said, "Produce it anyway." But they replied, "It's impossible." Go ahead, go ahead, Ford commanded, and stay on the job until you succeed, no matter how much time is required. The engineers went ahead. There were nothing else for them to do if they were to remain on the Ford staff. 6 months went by and nothing happened. Another 6 months passed and still nothing happened. The engineers tried every conceivable plan to carry out the orders, but the thing seemed out of the question impossible. At the end of the year, Ford checked with his engineers, and again they informed him they had found no way to carry out of his orders. "Go right ahead," said Ford. "I want it and I'll have it." They went ahead, and then, as if by a stroke of magic, the secret was discovered, and the Ford determinations had won once more. Henry Ford became successful because he understood and applied the principle of success. One of these is desired, knowing what we wanted. The other is persistence, preserving until the object of desire was obtained. Remember this Ford story as you read, because it reveals the secret. bec- uh, because it reveals the secret, the principles by which any object of desire is obtained. From milkshakes to the McDonald's with the Ray Kroc. Ray Kroc is a good example of another person whose riches originated with the thought. Kroc was a salesman of milkshake mixers. Most of his customers, restaurants, and dinners purchased one or two units. When he received an order for 8 mixers from a small food outlet in San Bernardino, California. He decided to visit them to see how they could sell so many shakes. It was the busiest restaurant he had ever seen. The brothers offered a very limited menu: hamburgers, cheeseburgers, French fries, shakes, and soft drinks, all at the lowest prices in the area. Kroc saw an opportunity. If he could open a chain of these restaurants, each productive and profitable, as this money would flow in. He proposed the idea to the McDonald's brothers, who teamed up his Kroc to implement it. Within a few years, McDonald's not only became the top selling food outlet in the country, but launched the fast food industry. Kroc later brought out the McDonald's brothers and expanded the business into the international phenomenon, making him one of the richest men of his time. Now, McDonald's started with a thought to offer a limited menu at the lowest price in the area. It grew into the worldwide billion-dollar fast food for franchises. From another thought to create a chain of these fast food restaurants. Both thoughts were the intangibles that ultimately produced the tangible wealth. About this book, most people who sincerely desire to improve themselves and their station in life learn to know the secret of how people become wealthy. Many wealthy people have learned these important life lessons on their own, just as Derby did by observing his and his uncle's mistake of stopping 3 feet short of gold, and from the 50 cent lessons of persistence. Few others, however, have the good fortune of observing such valuable life lessons or the ability to extract insight from such lessons. I wrote this book to make the secret more accessible to more people. Riches begin with a state of mind, with a definiteness of purpose, with a little or no hard work. I spent 25 years in research, interviewing more than 500 wealthy individuals and analyzing more than 25,000 people who had failed at their efforts to become rich. Because I too wanted to know how wealthy people become rich. Without that research, this book could not have been written. As you proceed, remembers this: riches begin with the state of mind, with definiteness of purpose, with little or no hard work. In this book, you learn how to acquire that state of mind, which will attract riches. When you begin to think and grow rich, you soon discover the following. When riches begins to come, they come too quickly in the such great evidence that one wonders where they have been hiding during all those lean years. This is an astounding statement, and all the more so when we take into the consideration the popular misconceptions that riches come only to those who work hard and long. Thus, we have completed these steps, and in my next video, I will come with step number 2.